All right, guys. Oh my gosh, it's going to be so much fun. I'm so excited because we're bringing my friend Jess Ekstrom back to Dream, Think, Do. As you may remember from episode 242, which is almost a year ago, or almost 100 episodes ago. Jess is the founder and CEO of Headbands of Hope, which is a company she started from her dorm room as a junior in college. And if you remember that story, for every headband that Jess sells, a headband is also given to a child with cancer. And they've given almost 1 million headbands away so far, which is incredible. By the way, if you're a headband person, Headbands of Hope is in over 2,000 stores across the United States and Canada. So get that headband, get 10 of them, right? Because it helps those kiddos. Not only that, but since founding Headbands of Hope, Jess has also become a best-selling author with her amazing book, Chasing the Bright Side. And she has her own awesome podcast called Business on the Bright Side. And she's become a sought-after speaker too. And she's been doing all sorts of cool stuff. She's been featured on the Today Show, Good Morning America, The View, as well as been featured in Forbes, 17, Vanity Fair, and People magazine, for crying out loud. And did I mention that Jess lives in an Airstream traveling around the country with her hubby and their 70-pound poodle named Ollie? So freaking cool. She is the example of what it is to dream, to live the dream, think, do life on your own terms. And if you've ever wondered how somebody like Jess does all of that, we're going to dig into that today. We're going to talk about a specific tool in her toolbox, one of the most powerful, that helps her to dream bigger, think better, and do more. And that's journaling. So we're going to get after it and find out what she does so you can be doing it too. Let's get to this. Jess, welcome back to Dream, Think, Do.
Thank you. Was it really 100 episodes ago? Man,
oh,
you
just
don't
about.
sleep.
We're just shy. I know, just shy of it, for crying out loud.
Holy
It's
cow.
nuts. I know.
I mean, I thought I was your only guest, but
you are in my heart. You are in my heart. And I will say yours was one of the most downloaded episodes of 2019. So how about that?
Awesome.
People loved that episode. Absolutely. And I did have to go back and look because it seems like that was yesterday. And like we were talking about before we hit record, that was at a time where nobody was talking about COVID, didn't even know what that word was. And the only people who said pandemic were people that watched Walking Dead. So it's crazy to think about it's been a wild season since. What's been one of your favorite things to come out of? I know a lot of terrible things have happened, but what's been one of the surprises for you to come out of this last year and a half since we talked?
I feel like my motto in 2020, once I finally wrapped my head around it, I definitely did not, watched Tiger King. I was definitely in kind of the pandemic. I had a moment where I was like, I'm just gonna, not do anything for 2 weeks. And then I was like, okay, we're going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
And I realized new problems also create new solutions. And so that was something that I found with Headbands of Hope, where we had areas that we needed to pivot. I had to cancel an in-person conference and turn it virtual. And we actually had 10x the amount of people that were supposed to show up in person, show up virtual. But I think that the biggest gift, and I understand that this is a privilege that the pandemic gave me, is a little bit of stillness, as a speaker. Pre-pandemic, I was traveling full time in an Airstream, but from there I was speaking around 50 times a year.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I love teaching, women how to get paid to speak through Mic Drop Workshop. And I love that part of my life, but I also didn't realize how also disruptive it was to just how much comfort there is in routine. And just knowing where you are when you wake up and this is my coffee maker and this is what I do. And so I think that was the gift and how I really started getting into journaling, which I know we're going to talk about too.
I love that, which is a great segue. You're good at this. Oh my gosh, you just gave me that.
I'll take you where you want to go. I'll take you where you want to go, Mitch. Yeah.
I love it. So let's talk about that, because I am a huge fan of journaling, but I'm also the first one to say that I'm not always good at it. Whenever I do it, it's always helpful, but I know, that's something you've wrestled with, and you're helping a lot of people to journal effectively. And we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. But I know for you, journaling's been huge. But again, I think you've said you've been sporadic with it at different seasons of your life.
And when you say you're not good at it, do you feel like you mean not consistent with it, or when you do it, you feel like you're not good at it?
So that is a great question. So I would answer that question differently on different seasons of my life. So,
Yeah.
but when I first got started with journaling, I would say that I didn't think I was good at it because I didn't write poetry. Like I kind of
Mm.
thought when I first started journaling that I must write something that looked like William Shakespeare wrote it, even though it's 5:30 on a Tuesday morning. It's like, not the right expectation, right?
Right.
Later on, I realized limiting how much I journal each day helped to
Mhm.
lower the expectation and just say,
A
hey, I want to
hundred
get it out
percent.
there. I want to process those kinds of things. But then I would say in that season, I would say that I wasn't good at it because I wasn't consistent at it.
Got it. Okay.
Now I would say that I'm more consistent at it, but where I'm working to improve, and I probably shouldn't say I'm not good at it, but where I'm working to improve is when I do it right, I feel something
Mm.
afterwards, right? Like I feel like, when I'm kind of journaling at my best on the other side, I feel better for having
Yeah.
done it.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that doesn't happen. And I know with any practice that's, you're going
Well,
to have that some days and
yeah.
some days not.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say that, like, I would go easy on yourself, because it's kind of like, you go to the gym and
Yeah.
not every workout is gonna be like,
I've
LeBron
changed my
James, like, yeah,
world.
like,
Yeah.
oh my God, look at these buys and tries. But you
Very
still you
true.
still went to the gym, and
Yep.
you never you're never like, oh, I shouldn't have gone to the gym today.
Right.
Same thing. You're never like, oh, I shouldn't have journaled this
Yeah.
morning. Like, what a
Yep.
waste of time. Like, no matter
Exactly.
how, much you felt or little that you felt, it's still, I guarantee, 1 degree better than what you were before.
Totally
And
agree.
so kind of, I feel the same way sometimes, where sometimes I feel like I'm writing a next bestseller, and sometimes I'm like, what do you need to buy avocados today. I'm like, where is my mind going? But I think you
Exactly
hit the
right.
nail on the head with
Yeah.
setting the bar low
Yep.
is actually a really great habit to develop for journaling, which kind of sounds counterintuitive, like, but
Right.
I think a lot of times we feel like to journal, it's like light the candles, get the incense, like
That's right. And
be
I
in a
have to have my
cabin.
journal and my G2 pen at the
a
right width,
hundred
all of
percent
that. And it's like, wait,
Yeah.
is that the thing? Or is it setting that bar a little lower and giving myself some
Yeah.
space?
Well,
Yeah.
and that's actually kind of what led me to my newest startup, was because I did have the bar set really high, because how I discovered like the power of journaling was through writing Chasing the Bright Side. I was on a book deadline. I had to have a certain amount of words per day. I had to have it, by this date and this time.
Yep.
And so I found myself in this super disciplined writing practice where, like, every morning I wouldn't check Instagram. I'm not getting on TikTok. I'm like on my computer, just
Focused.
before, yeah,
Doing it. Yes.
I can't even listen to anyone else's thoughts, because I need to
Yep.
focus on my own. And then I would start to notice these trends of, like, when I would do that, I was more clear throughout the day. I had
Yeah.
less anxiety. I knew what my goals were. Like, I didn't feel, like you said earlier, like spaghetti mind.
Yeah.
And so it took me about, 50,000 words to realize, hey, like, maybe this is
Maybe there's a
the
discipline here.
yeah,
Yeah,
maybe this
exactly.
is the common denominator. But then, I turned in my manuscript and I was like, cool, I'm done. And I didn't have a reason to write every
Yeah.
morning. And then I started to notice it. I started to get more anxious, more cluttered. I'd wake up with a little panicky, like,
Yeah.
kind of, like a hummingbird. And then so I started during the pandemic to see if I could try out different kinds of journaling. I tried
Yeah.
physical journals. I tried some online journals. And I would get somewhere, and I would have these, like, kind of weak, stints where
Yeah.
I would do it, and then I would kind of drop off. And I was like, I wish, and this is like how I think every
Ding. Yeah.
entrepreneur idea happens. It's like, I wish there was.
Yep.
And whenever your mind says that to you, better freaking listen, because you're
Exactly.
about to have
Write that down.
write that
Exactly.
down.
Exactly.
I was like, I wish there was journaling tracks, or like paths that I could
Yeah.
take based on certain ideas that I have, where I could get guided prompts based on whatever it is I'm trying to do. So, for example, like if I am trying to come up with my next book idea, I wish I could take a journaling track that asked me questions that would help me uncover that next book idea.
Yeah.
Or if I want to start a podcast, maybe I could get journaling questions that direct me and guide me to like figuring out what that podcast is. So alas, I'm skipping a lot, but Bright Pages was born, and that's exactly what we do. Is we have a guided online journal with different prompt pathways to help people with whatever they're interested in or whatever they want to do. And the pathways are created by hopefully people like you. Mitch would love to have a pathway, but
Right.
people who have done it. I know
Yep.
you've had Antonio Neves on your podcast.
Yep.
He has a Stop Living on Autopilot pathway. So we have an entire library on there that continues to build of different pathways that people can track
I
to
love that.
journal towards something.
Yep. And it's an online platform that anybody can get access to. It's just absolutely incredible. Brightpages.com. So let's talk about that, especially when I know you've created a number of the pathways. I know you've had a number of creators create the pathways, things like that, which is awesome. I'm looking forward to creating 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 as
10,
well,
yeah.
which is awesome. But let's talk about what you found, because I know for you continue to dream big. I mean, you continue to do big things, even in the face of adversity and change and all of those things. What are some of the things that you found when it comes to journaling that have helped you dream bigger?
I think that one of the things that with journaling that I think has helped me dream bigger is it helps you I think kind of see the roadblocks that are in your head
Yeah.
that you might not even know exist. I like to think of journaling as like, when you're a kid and you think that there's like a monster under the bed and you're just sitting there like, oh my God, there's a monster under my bed. I can't go to
Yeah.
sleep. And then you get up, you turn the lights on, you look under the bed and realize, it's just a baseball bat or like whatever it might
Exactly.
be.
Yeah.
Journaling does that for you. And
Mhm.
so I think for me to be able to dream big, I also have to recognize the thoughts that are holding me back. And a
Yeah.
lot of times the thoughts that are holding me back are not truth. They're just kind of formed out of these repetition, like neurofires in our
Yep.
mind.
I like
And
that,
so
neurofires. It's
yeah,
very
it's just
true.
like it's true. It's
Yep.
like, "Oh, why this is just a narrative that I've created. It's not
Right.
actually fact." And so for me, and I hope for other people, journaling helps distinguish between what's fact and what's fiction, so you can
Yep.
really choose to part with the fiction and just focus on the path and where you want to go.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So how would you do that? Like if somebody's new to journaling, or maybe they haven't done it for a while, or maybe they're just looking for a fresh approach.
Yeah.
Is it, to go and make sure those monsters under the bed are not actually true, right? What are
Yeah.
some of is it specific prompts? What have you found are effective prompts if somebody's wanting to identify some of those things that maybe are real or imagined that are
Mhm.
holding them back? What's been a couple of ways to get there?
Yeah, one of my favorite kind of starting prompts, even just a thinking prompt, if you're
Yeah.
listening right now, is figuring out like what is it that you want? Where are you
Yeah.
trying to go? And
Yeah.
then what do you need to stop, start, and continue doing?
Ah,
And it's really simple. And I think actually Antonia was like someone that first led me on to that. But it's almost this audit where you can really look at your life, where you want to go, and then what are the habits, relationships, patterns in your life that are serving you, halting you, or that you
yeah.
really want to continue to train that muscle. So I think that's a great starting point. But
I love
then
that.
on Bright Pages, we have a pathway called 5 pages to clarity. And that's the
Nice.
pathway that we suggest everyone starts off with. And it's almost just like that cleanse of like, let's get out all the things in our head all those little neurofires
Yeah.
that I called them, and figure out what it is that you really want.
Yeah.
And what's holding you back.
I love that. What's wild about this is you and I didn't talk about this part of it
Mhm.
beforehand, but on Sunday, I actually journaled, what do I want?
Interesting.
And it was weird. And I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've journaled for years. I'm kind of a, dream, think, do guy, right? So I have a good sense of some of the big things that I want to achieve and experience, what I want for my family. So when I first, I just kind of got the nudge, I was praying and got the nudge, what do you want? And I'm like, I almost dismissed it. Like I almost brushed it off. Like, oh, I know what I want. And it's like, yeah, but no. What do you want? And I think, going back to earlier in our conversation, I think that's also something that COVID has done. Like there's a lot of dark, sad things that COVID has done, but there's also a lot of good that's come from this challenge. And one of those things is I think it's given people, it's either forced them or given them permission to reset expectations. Right. And it's one of those on Sunday morning, I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I know what I want. It's like, yeah, I know. But, and I always felt like that was, in this case, it was prayer too. Like God saying, lean into that. But what do you want now? What do you want today? What do you want? I know what you've always wanted, but like, are you sure you want
Yeah.
those things? Like, let's look at that, lean into that. And it was wild because I probably resisted for a good 5 minutes, kind of that inner dialogue. And then it was just like, all right, I'm not going to filter. I'm just going to let it pour out. And then this page just filled up with completely selfish and transparent, materialistic things. I know the exact Jeep that I want, like my dream Jeep. But at the same time, what do I want the experience of living with my wife to be like?
Yeah.
What do I want life to look like as far as freedom? And it was really interesting because some of those things that came were things that I believed for years and still hold true. And some of those things were like, wait, there's been some things that have shifted. And
Yeah.
it's such a simple question. And honestly, there was a little bit of tension. Like that's full on tension when it first hit, but to lean into it and stay with it. And I think to follow up with that, I love the questions of what do you need to start? What do you need to stop? What do you need to continue to do? I think is a great next step because we have to do that inventory once in a while. And this isn't a New Year's Eve kind of thing. This is no, what do you really want? And then, all right, how do we actually start to do it? Right.
Yeah.
So I love that. I think it's such a simple, but powerful thing.
I think some of the most honest way to conversate with yourself is through journaling.
Yep.
Because when you conversate with yourself in your head, like you can go down this rabbit hole and that rabbit hole. And then it's like, well, what about this? Where journaling, I feel like because you are actually, putting your fingers to the keys or writing it down, it's really, you're just pulling out the big stuff.
Yep.
And I think like the other thing too that I'm finding is our gut reaction when we want something. We want to start a podcast. We want to, be an entrepreneur, whatever it is that we want to do. Our gut reaction is to look out.
Yeah.
What can I consume? What can I absorb? What can I read? Which all of that is great.
Sure.
But I think that should be only a percentage of what like you actually spend your energy doing.
Yes.
And a larger percentage should be looking in, okay, I want to start a podcast. Well, why? Who do I want to serve? Like, what does success look like with this podcast? And sometimes those are questions that we ask ourselves, maybe not too late, but just a little further away than we should.
Right.
So instead of our gut reaction whenever we want to be somewhere else to consume, what if it's create? Yeah. And that's what, I hope that journaling and Bright Pages can do for people.
I love that. Well, and I agree with you. And I think I'm old school when it comes to journaling. Like I love technology in a lot of areas, but when it comes to journaling, I have this paper journal that I've been using, the same kind of journal for years. I'm a little OCD that way. And it is completely analog, right? Like you couldn't get more dial up than this, right? But there is something so beautiful to going back to 10, 15 years of journals to flip open to a page. And to your point, it's that thing of being able to see, all right, what was I thinking about then?
For sure.
And it's this beautiful snapshot. Yeah.
Well, we even talked about, what our minds were like, our last episode in 2019. Like, it's so interesting to be able to look back. And I will say, like, do what works for you with journaling, but I have to give some props to online journaling for a second and just show you. I just need to tell you what you're missing. So with online journaling,
yes.
I feel like, especially if you're using it to kind of capture your ideas, you can have more organization to it. Like I have a paper notebook as well, that I find once that page is turned, like it's really hard for me to go back and say, what was that thing that I talked about, on
Right. Where
Monday,
was
or
that
that
again?
thought?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a function where you can like tag your entries. So if you have a book idea, or I keep going back to
Yeah.
podcasting, you can
Right.
tag it with podcast. And so whenever you go back and search, you can pull up all the entries that were tagged with
Totally.
podcast. But
Totally.
the one thing that I will say too is what we talked about at the beginning, where lower the bar, give yourself
Yep.
just kind of the gift of convenience when it comes to journaling, and like
Yep.
not feel like you have to be there for an hour. So we actually email you your prompt for that day, whether you're on a pathway or whether it's just a general prompt. And in your Gmail app or whatever, you can just respond to the email with your entry and
Oh,
it'll
that's cool.
archive
And
it
then
for you. Yeah.
brilliant. See, that's
Yeah.
where the technology is also beautiful. It's absolutely
Yeah.
fantastic. I
So
love
maybe
it.
color outside the lines a little bit,
Exactly right.
Mitch.
Bring it,
Yeah.
bring it over, bring it into this century, for crying out loud.
You
I
can
love
sign
it.
up with your AOL account if you're that old
Exactly
school.
right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. I love it. And I can get my whole wagon train in on it. I think that'll be fantastic. All right. So
A
let's
pigeon
talk.
carrier will deliver you your
Exact-
username and password. Yeah.
That's fantastic. We got them on the roof. All right. So we talked a little bit about getting started and dreaming. Let's talk a little bit about day-to-day thinking, right? Because you and I have talked about it's when we're going to go out and accomplish big things, oftentimes it's a matter of getting our brain thinking the right way. Like you talked
Mhm.
about the power of journaling, just even as you were doing your writing for your book, helped to set you up for a better day. So
Right.
what's another journaling activity, whether it's a prompt or an approach, that's helped you and people that use Bright Pages to think better
Yeah.
during the day?
Well, first, I'll say just the science behind it. Our brains can only hold like 6 to 7 pieces of information at once.
Yeah.
And so when we have above that amount, which I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm pushing 20 to 25, like at a
Exactly.
typical
Yes,
day,
exactly.
we start to feel that overwhelm. And so
Yeah.
just the act of journaling and saying, like putting things down on paper, can help kind of bring that list down of
Yep.
like, okay, I now have 3 things that are in my head as
Yeah.
opposed to 20. It just kind of removes that burden.
That's awesome.
But as far as like, something that you can journaling practice that I like to do, and it's kind of I don't know if like woo woo is the right word,
That's
but
all right. We're
um
plenty good with woo woo here.
yeah,
Yeah, bring it.
I like to look at what my schedule is for the day.
Uh-huh.
And then whatever meetings that I'm having, whoever it's with, those people, I just like to write about like what I hope for them,
Oh,
like
wow.
and like, what I hope for Mitch today, or like what's like the best possible outcome or scenario for that person, whether it's with me or whatever. And I like to have a moment where I remind myself that I am not the center of the universe.
Wow.
And,
Yeah.
I was reading some psychology article, and it was like narcissists, their outlook on life, and I don't think I'm a narcissist, but I think this is interesting,
Yeah.
is, that they are, the world is a movie and they are the main character.
Uh,
And, so I think sometimes we can, when we feel like woe is me, that we can kind of default to that. Like, why
yeah.
isn't everything around me the way that I want it to be?
Yeah.
So when I journal about other people, even if it's just like a 15-minute call with like Wells Fargo or something like that bank teller has a life, and maybe
Right.
they I like to remind myself that I'm not the only one on the stage here.
That is powerful. I love that. I think that is an incredible way to bring the day to day into your journaling, just to
Yeah.
be able to say, all right, here's a hope that I have for this person, an intention that I have going in, or I think that is incredible. Plus, I've always heard that if you're worried about being a narcissist, you're not a narcissist.
Good. Okay, we can cross
Narcissists don't
that.
worry about being narcissists. I love it. I love it. That is so great. Yeah. And if you're having that kind of journaling activity, I guarantee you, you're not a narcissist.
Yeah,
So I
well,
love
and
it.
and journaling, one of the cool parts about it is that it's about self-reflection. And so it
Yeah.
is an arena, for you to be
Yeah.
selfish if you want to. But
Right.
then, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you
Right.
can also use that kind of superpower for whatever you want. Like, what
Right.
if I had hopes and dreams for the people that I'm going to collide with today, or, or even like sometimes I'll write letters to, people that maybe I just had a little riff with, like,
Yeah.
that how there's just some people in your life where when you go to bed at night and you're like,
Yeah.
dang, like, why did
Yeah.
that happen
That
or whatever? Yeah.
yes,
And
exactly.
it's like 10 years ago or whatever. Sometimes I'll just write them a letter, like either forgiving them or
Wow.
just, and it's not about me. And I never send the letter,
Yeah.
but it just helps.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So good. So good. There's so much gold, so much gold. Let's go after. So you hit it out of the home or hit it out of the park with dreaming, thinking. Let's go after doing. Just from a
Mhm.
day-to-day perspective, you've got so many different awesome things happening. How would you say journaling helps you keep it on the rails? Like
Yeah.
what's one of the things from a day-to-day perspective that journaling helps you to stay focused, get things done, that kind of
Yeah.
thing? Where does that play
And
in?
honestly, that's one of the reasons that was one of kind of the powering beliefs behind Bright Pages, because I felt like a lot of the journaling services or journals that I
Yep.
found were more in like the gratitude and emotion side, which I think is great. But I'm like, I want a journal that helps me like get it done.
Get
Like, this
stuff
is what I
done.
want to do.
Exactly.
Let's
Yeah.
do it. And so a lot of like the prompts and the pathways that we have break it down between short-term and long-term goals,
Awesome.
and also like what are the tasks that you need to do today
Yeah.
and or on Tuesday or whatever it might be,
Yeah.
and really help you map that out. And because again, once when it's in your head, it feels like everything needs to be done today.
Yeah.
So one of the things I like to tell anyone who's working on an idea or a goal or a dream is like, don't worry about winning the Super Bowl right now. Like, just get the first down. So
Yeah.
for me, journaling is like, what's the first down? And
Yeah.
like, let's focus on that. Like, I can also vision plan and like think about all what great things would be, but honestly, by the time you're in like the second quarter, that idea of the Super Bowl has probably changed anyway. So
Right.
like, don't spend
Exactly.
so much time on the big idea. Just
Yeah.
get the first down. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And just even that prompt of what's something specific you want to get done today, right? Like
Oh
that,
yeah.
what
So
at the end of the
simple.
day do you want to get done? And then oftentimes when you get that done, then the other things fall into the right
Yeah.
order and all of that, which I
One of
think
the
is so perfect.
prompts that will just like a general prompt if you're not on a pathway that we'll send out on Mondays usually is like, if you could only get 3 things done this week, what would they be? And
Nice.
it's like, if that was it,
Yeah.
what would it be? And sometimes that's just helpful. It's like, if I only could have 3 things, like this is it. Just
Absolutely.
it's a lot of the simple questions that that get you where you need to
Isn't that
be.
crazy? It is.
Yeah.
It's sometimes the most simple questions get you the most profound kind of
Yeah.
results.
Well, because
So,
our mind is complex enough. Like we
right.
are we are overcomplicating things all the time.
Right.
So we need something that kind of turns down the volume a little bit.
Exactly. I love it. I love it. Oh my gosh, this is so good. So much gold. You are amazing, Jess. So here's the thing. I'm going to hit you with one last question. You can think about it while I brag about you a little bit. So here's the question is, I'm guessing that there's people that are listening to this that maybe they journaled years ago, haven't done it for a while, or they've always wanted to, just haven't started. What's one thing you'd want to send them out with? Maybe what's one thing you wish you would have known earlier about
Mhm.
journaling. Yeah, and so be thinking about that. We'll send them out with that piece of wisdom. But guys, we have been talking with Jess Ekstrom. I'll tell you what, her book, Chasing the Bright Side, for those of you watching, it's an freaking awesome, amazing
Thank
book. You're
you.
going to love it. And what we've been talking about too is her brand new online journaling service called Bright Pages. You can go find out about it at brightpages.com. It's absolutely beautiful. Prompts and strategies to help you explore new ideas, go deeper on your goals and dreams. I want you to go check it out, guys. You will be blessed by it big time. So again, you can go to brightpages.com to check that out. So, all right, Jess, what's one last pearl of wisdom you want to drop on people when it comes to journaling?
I would say, kind of bringing it back to our earlier topic, is good enough is great.
Ah,
And that is something that not just in journaling, but I think in a
yeah.
lot of areas of life, of like, give yourself kudos for good enough, because good enough means that you did it.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be like, the next New York Times bestseller to
Exactly.
be valuable.
So good. Jess, you are the bomb. I so appreciate you. I'm so glad you're in the world because you're making it a better place.
Thanks, Mitch. Thanks for having me.